everybody. Welcome to brand new 2025. What a hell of a way to dad. It is Francis and Nate back after our long and very necessary vacation. Nate, how have things been? How was your new, Christmas in your new adoptive country here?
It was nice. I mean, we had a nice dinner and, we tried to go take walks and stuff on days when we could, when the weather was nice. I mean, obviously our stuff arrived from England the second week of December. So there's been a kind of mad dash of unpacking and, getting things set up. But to be honest with you, I've actually found it to be a lot easier here than in the UK or in New York, because getting rid of stuff like recycling is you can kind of dispose of all the packing materials, and there hasn't really been a point where I've been sitting around being like, God, I can't wait till they come and take all these boxes kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I've been able to do it in stages and not really have it build up hugely. And so we still have, I'm staring at a pack of yet to be unwrapped, pictures and frames that need to be hung up. And there's definitely a bunch of boxes in what's going to be our work from home space, but everything else is by and large just done and unpacked and set up. So that's cool. That's really nice. Yeah. And, I got my bike unpacked and have been riding here in Geneva, which has been awesome. I mean, genuinely wonderful. I rode today to go down to an appointment and then to go work at the co-working space a little bit, and then came back to handle some stuff here. And,
are you
nice.
Wearing a helmet?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I am. I have a helmet and I have a helmet liner.
I know that it's not cool to wear a helmet in, I know Joe was saying it's not cool to wear a helmet in the Netherlands. I don't know if Switzerland is the same, but
it's half and half here. Yeah. I would say that, to be honest with you, in parts of Europe where they've really done a lot of work to make it a lot more cycle friendly, and they've installed really, really serious infrastructure to let people cycle to and from a bunch of places, like the way they have in pretty much everywhere in the Netherlands, certainly every urban area in the Netherlands, and then also in Copenhagen and Denmark, and to some extent, I'd say Berlin's is pretty good too. I mean, it's not phenomenal, but it's there. I would say in the Netherlands and in Denmark, adults typically don't wear helmets. Kids do, but adults don't. In Germany, it seemed like most adults didn't, but some did. Here, it's half and half. I would say the one thing here that I feel maybe makes it a little bit less of a, I don't know, maybe people kind of lean more towards it, is that a lot of people have, my bike, I have an electric assist bike, and my bike, I often feel like I'm the smallest bike on the road, because a lot of people have heavier duty electric bikes, and also
you got the American super duty F-150 but bikes around you.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, because you've got bikes that have almost passenger car setup things for kind of a cargo cart on the back, but that's set up for multiple seats for kids with an overhead cover. You have big cargo bikes hauling stuff. I often seen people doing cargo deliveries on bikes. A lot of the mail gets delivered. They either pull up on a bike, or sort of what I would describe as an electric sort of mini bongo truck that's basically a big scooter with a windshield.
Yeah.
And then
I wanted to say, because you and Joe on one of the Lions episodes were talking about Afghanistan, and because you and Joe and myself, we've all been to Afghanistan, so I was doing I remember that. And he talked about the jingle trucks, and I remember I have a picture of it somewhere, of the scooter, and in Thailand they're called tuk-tuks, where they're just it's a scooter, but it's got it's got three wheels, and it's got a little overhead cab, and if your friends don't mind getting a little close, you can probably cram 2 or 3 people in the back, maybe hang a guy on the back. Definitely seen that. And those are all things that it's very strange that it hasn't made its way outside of, places like Thailand or Afghanistan, where, you need scooter, but also not full car.
Yeah. So I see that here quite a bit. I see not the tuk-tuks or things like that, like they have in, like you said, in Thailand or in the Philippines, or also in Indonesia, they have them too. I remember getting in one and then asking to go to the airport, and the guy's like, I can't go to the airport. The road.
Yeah. That's Jakarta, the downside to it. Yeah.
But here, for example, you'll see these things I was never in Iraq, but I transited through Kuwait, and in Gulf countries, you see a lot of these utility trucks. They call bongo trucks, the really, really small trucks with really, really small wheels, because most Gulf countries, as I understand it, it's pretty much everywhere in what's considered the kind of Gulf economic area. It's very flat.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't really need gigantic wheels, off-roading stuff. And, for utility things, it's like a cage truck, like a mini cage truck. I see those here. They're almost all electric. And then I actually see like smaller versions of those that I think they're allowed to go on the pavements and stuff like that in places like obviously within reason, but they typically have a sticker on the back of them saying that they're limited. They can't go faster than 45 kilometers an hour. And you see them as kind of like an intermediate vehicle. And like, I was thinking about that. Hilariously, I don't think there's any way that I could drive one of those to the big hardware store to get stuff because of the road that goes there is like a much bigger road.
Mm-hmm.
But I would fucking love to be able to like, for utility stuff when I need to haul things, being able to have a little, because someone was telling me that in China, there's the same thing too, of like tiny electric cars that basically you're not allowed to drive them outside of like roads are rated at a certain speed and like within like your neighborhood, like you can't drive outside of that range, or like you can't drive on roads that are rated above the car, but like for getting around smaller roads in the city, you can. And it's like, that whips. Yeah, I would love to have that. I mean, because if we got a car, like it would just sit in the garage or sit in a parking spot forever, unless there was like a couple of random errands I might need it for, because like where I'm at right now, I just don't need one.
Yeah, you know what's popular around here, getting more and more popular. And as I sit here and extol the values and the virtues of having the tuk-tuk, having this little tiny scooter that you can go around in, every time I see a golf cart though on the road, I want to run everybody down. Even though it's exactly the same kind of thing. I think it's a golf cart is a little bit more expensive, and I don't know, it always just seems to be driven by a bunch of assholes. But we do have kind of the same thing, the smaller side roads. Nobody goes out, like not even highways, just like main drags. People don't take their golf carts out there. But like at that point, there's a certain amount of like, well, what's useful here? If I'm only going half a mile, sure, I could, like, I don't know, just taking the golf cart versus taking the regular car. I think I'd rather take the regular car. But I mean, really the answer is better mass transit, which is never going to happen. So I guess we all get tuk-tuks.
Yeah, but I couldn't take, they have very good public transit here, but I couldn't take, a great big
can't take a 2x4.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, quite frankly, one of the problems that I'm looking at is that there's a bunch of things in the canton of Geneva for like recycling, stuff like electronics waste and things like that. And I have some things I need to get rid of. But one of them is a 120 centimeter fluorescent tube that was mounted under the kitchen, one of the kitchen counters, and I had to replace it. And the tube was burning out. Now, everything else I can just put in one of my duffel bags and bike down to the place and get rid of it. I'm planning on doing that. But that thing, what am I going to, that's just too big for any bag that I've got. You know what I mean? Like, so I actually don't know. Like, do I have to be like a real weirdo and get on the bus down there with like this enormous fluorescent tube hanging out my bag? I genuinely don't know, because I don't have a car.
I don't know. Fluorescent tubes, I think like it's fun to break them over your friends' heads. I think. I don't know.
I don't know if I can.
We're too old for that shit now.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's weird particulate dust and shit like that. I don't want to deal with that.
Like we can't. Right. It's okay to get the cancer when you're 22, because you're already smoking and drinking anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave you with this. I did ride down today, and that would normally take me 15 to 20 minutes on the bus, and it was 8 minutes on bike. And it was absolutely, man, it put me in so much better of a mood. It's so nice.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we just got slammed with 8 to 10 inches of snow here. So there's no biking. I still have to walk the dog every day. And having to walk after a snowstorm makes you really hate your neighbors, because there are some people who do the correct thing and shovel their sidewalks, and then there's the people who are like, I don't have to do that. Nobody's going to make me do it, so I'm not going to do it. And then I have to walk. My dog doesn't give a shit. She's a Great Pyrenees. She's just like, yeah, fucking winter. Stomp, stomp, stomp. We're good.
Snow is what I'm made for.
I love the snow. Finally, it's my weather. And then, there's me behind with, all my 5 different layers on and blowing my nose the whole time. So I haven't been enjoying that, but you know what? I don't have to drive anywhere. We did all of our shopping beforehand. We, went out to Costco. Well, my wife went out to Costco and did all of the stock up shopping. So we're pretty good around here. It's not too bad. I don't think my wife has to go somewhere tomorrow. Hopefully everything is kind of dug out by then. I don't know. City of St. Louis ain't great about it all the time. So But yeah, let's you know what? I told you before we started recording, I posted in the Discord. We got a lot of different questions for the Hey Dad. So let's answer some questions. And I think the first one, there's always a lot of cooking stuff. So let's knock out some cooking questions first. And one of them is how do you get your kid to like your cooking? And I wanted to ask this because you're still in that like era where if you put something in front of your daughter, it's probably going to go into her mouth regardless.
Wrong.
No, she doesn't do that?
It really depends. I mean, I think that she sometimes does. And when we cook stuff, typically the day that we cook it, when it's, fresh, right out the oven, right off the stove, even if she doesn't like it at first, she sees us eating it, she'll normally be convinced. But I think one thing that's been interesting, because she just turned 16 months, is the degree to which you used to have certain foods that you knew she would eat, like no matter what. So if you couldn't get her to eat other things, like you could give her another option and she would absolutely eat it. And like that's getting harder to predict now. Certain things she seems to always stick with, like even when she was teething pretty bad and like, was obviously uncomfortable. Bread, like we just give her, there's all sorts of kinds of breads you can buy here, and we typically get this thing. It's going to sound weird, but imagine like the soft white bread in rolls with a dough that baked on the outside has the kind of consistency of like a soft pretzel. Okay. But when you buy it, it's a ring. So it's like all the 6 or 8 or 10 of these rolls are all connected in a ring, and it's called I think it's Silzakranz in German, or like basically I don't know what Sils is, but it's like Sil's crown. Yeah, there's something. Because it's couronne de Sil in French, but it's literally the same word. So like whatever the SILS word is, I have no idea. But that's one of them, and the couronne de Sil is the thing that she absolutely will chow down on. But you can't, much like the aphorism, babies can't live on bread alone. So there are a few things that sometimes work, but like it can be weird. It can be weird, like with getting her, for example, to like, she used to love mango. You cube up some mango, she'd always eat it. And then sometimes she'd be like, nope, don't want it anymore. Yeah. It constantly changes. I would say as a former picky eater, as a small child, and now not particularly picky eater, I would say, I don't really know. I do think that I've noticed this with my own child, that there are definitely some things where I know, for example, like even if she's being fussy about certain stuff, if like I've made, like there's a couple of pasta dishes she really likes, and if I make that for dinner, then like she will eat it the night I make it. But other than that, like when they're older and they're talking and they have opinions, I don't really know yet. I haven't experienced it yet. But well, when they get older and they start having opinions, my daughter. So one thing that we never really understood when our daughter was younger, when she was, your daughter's age, under 2 years old, is that when you're kind of, as we call it in the house, neurospicy, little autism, being on the spectrum somewhere, different sensations make you feel different than I would feel, right? So one thing that our daughter used to love to do when she was younger is put a pickle spear in her hand, like a dill pickle spear, and kind of gum on it. And she would make this face as if she was being electrocuted. Like she would put it in her mouth, she would gum on it for a minute, she'd take it out, and she would just go like that, like she's about to like that, and then stop and then take another bite because she was really into that. Has never touched a pickle since she was that age. But like those flavors can be a little overly sensitive, right? Like it can be a big sensation to her. So we kind of understood that, and weirdly, like there's just weird things that she's like, no, I won't touch that, but she will eat, like she doesn't really eat hot dogs, but she will eat pork steaks. I don't understand it. But this morning, she woke up, and she's been waking up before I do because she's just in that cycle of, I don't know, being 9 years old, almost 10. Sometimes she wakes up at 5:30 every day for months on end, and sometimes she sleeps till 8:30. I don't get it either. But she woke up this morning, and she's like, all right, I'm going to make my own. Usually I give her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the morning. Just, it's got, the bread has good fiber in it. The jelly has, it's jam. So it's like real preserves and fruit, and the peanut butter's got the protein. So it's great. So she makes her own this morning. She's like, I'm going to make my own. And she made peanut butter. Then she put Kerrygold butter on top. And then in with the peanut butter, she put Honey Nut Cheerios. And she demolished it. And I think it's because yesterday my wife and I were talking about how we, the way that college students eat. Because last night I said, hey, I had to do a bunch of shoveling. I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to think about dinner too much, but we can't go out because it just snowed and nobody can leave. So I made some elbow macaroni, and I put a little bit of butter on it, and then I dumped a bunch of chili in the pot, and I said, cool, there's dinner for us. I like chili mac, very simple. And we mentioned to
our daughter, like, yeah, this is kind of, this is like college student eating. We talked about making ramen in a coffee pot, because it's like, it'll get the water hot enough and you can kind of boil it on a hot plate. So she's got this idea of the way that college students eat, and the way that college students eat is grabbing whatever's in the pantry and slamming it all together and then eating it, which true. And so she's kind of taking that to her own level. So she made that this morning and she showed it to me, but she showed me that she had already eaten half of it. And I said, sure, go ahead. It's got all the elements that I would have given you anyway. You've added a few extras to it. I don't care. Whatever is going to make you happy and get you fed this morning is good by me.
Yeah. So we made raclette on New Year's Eve, which is kind of like the other Swiss meal that people know, perhaps less common than fondue. But raclette is basically roast potatoes, and then you use an oven it's kind of like you can do like hibachi style stuff to cook meat on top of it or heat up cured meat. But the main point is you have these little trays and you use the specific kind of cheese that's called, I believe it's raclette is the name of the cheese, but it's traditionally made in the Canton of Valais, and you can buy it, you can cut it yourself, or you can buy it in the store, like, cut in slices, and it fits in these little trays. And then basically the sort of hibachi heating element melts the cheese, and then you basically slide it out of the tray onto this roast or baked potato bit, relatively small size potato. But you have all sorts of like things you put in, like caramelized onions and like pickles and pickled onions and like pancetta or other kinds of like fatty, smoked meat that you cook. And then you basically serve it all, like you kind of make baked potatoes that way, put it that way. Imagine now when I'm in the grocery store and I see like raclette potatoes, they tend to be like finger potatoes, basically, like they're small. Mm-hmm. We didn't have those, so I just basically cubed up a bunch of potatoes or cut them into pretty big chunks and roast them in the oven, and then we did it that way. And my daughter did not seem particularly interested at first, but then like we managed to get her to have a little like bits at a time of like a little bit of cold cubed cheese and then like some bits of the cooked pancetta. And then like she loves potatoes. Like I'll use the pressure cooker and cook like cubed potatoes and carrots, and she demolishes them. And so eventually we were able to get her to have some. And similarly, like a kind of famous leftover thing you do with raclette stuff is to more or less make a casserole with it and bake it in the oven. And so I did that like the next day. She didn't want any, but then like slowly but surely she saw us eating it, and like we were able to kind of get her to eat it. But sometimes I have to settle for whatever, a few bites of the things that we've got and then we're having, and then like some yogurt and some, cut up strawberry or cut up mango or slice or banana. She loves bananas now. She went through a phase of not really liking them, and now she really likes them again. Cynthia made this pasta recently that she said it was similar to a dish she'd had here, but she found a recipe in America that's pretty close, and she just uses that one. I think I've talked about it on the show before. It's like the pasta with shallots and padron peppers and mushrooms and pancetta, and then you basically cook the pasta with chicken stock instead of water, and you cook it all the way down so it absorbs the stock.
Oh, okay.
And then you mix in those cooked vegetables and meat I just described, and then you also wilt in spinach, and then serve it that way. And she went absolutely to town on that. She loved it. And then there's also the Marcella Hazen tomato sauce that's just basically peel an onion, cut it in half, melt butter in a pan, put whole peeled tomato, like stewed tomatoes in there, or whole tomato, like can of tomatoes, and literally just cook it in the butter and onion, like very low heat for like an hour, and then take the onion out and serve it with pasta.
Yeah, that's good.
It's really easy. It's so easy as like a weeknight dinner. Mm-hmm. And it's a great thing for kids, and my daughter loves it. And sometimes to like, you can, because I didn't know this until recently, that a lot of your sort of standard Italian pasta sauces there's like variants of them. Like there's one that's literally just garlic and oil. And then there's the, olive oil and tomatoes and garlic. And then there's also maybe butter and tomatoes and with the onion in like that. But then if you add, I can't remember which one it is, like basically if you add chili peppers and cubed pork belly or pancetta or lardons or whatever to it, then that becomes like a different variant, and so on and so forth. Like they kind of build on each other. And so sometimes to make the sauce a little more interesting, I'll put a little bit of like chili flakes, and then I'll cook pancetta and mix it in. She loves that too. So, I mean, this probably sounds impossibly bougie, but you have to realize like these are just things we can get. Like I can go downstairs and get pancetta, even like the cheap grocery store brand version of it. Like it's just a thing. By contrast, there are certain things that are very, very hard to find that are easy to find in America. Different places have different foods. So My apologies if I sound like fucking like some kind of aristocrat.
Well, the next question that I want to bring up, which is going to kind of fall into this, McCruton on the Discord says, I'm about to be unemployed of my own volition soon, and I want to take over cooking duties in the meantime for my partner. What are some easy meals that are hard to fuck up? And, we're talking about potatoes. Tonight, I'm going to be making a potato and mushroom soup because I got a lot of potatoes and I got a lot of mushrooms that I need to use up. The easiest thing to do is to soup them all together. I would say, always get yourself potatoes and play with potatoes, because not only is it hard to fuck them up, but if you do, they're cheap and you just get another potato. It's fine. You can always bake a potato. I like to cube them and fry them in butter. I like to take a potato to my box grater and grate it up and make hash browns that way. You can do all kinds of things with the potato, and it's really it has all of the vitamins and minerals you need. I mean, it has most of them. It's technically a vegetable, so it works out in all the different ways.
Yeah. So a friend of mine mentioned something that he uses to kind of not want to, because I cook pretty much all the time. And I enjoy it, but also, unless you've got a lot of leftovers and don't have to cook that night, there's a degree to which, it is a thing that is going to consume a decent chunk of your afternoon and evening. We'll put it that way.
Not just the cooking, the prep, and the cleanup afterwards. This is how it always is for me. If I'm cooking dinner, it's an hour and a half no matter what. An hour and a half of my evening is dedicated to this. And
it depends on what you're cooking and the complexity of it. But then, you got to get the ingredients and you got to prep and then cook it and then serve it and then clean up and put stuff away if you're keeping leftovers and things like that. So when I think about recipes that I have cooked that were hits, that were easy, I would say my friend's tip was get some kind of protein marinade that you like, particularly getting something like chicken, I don't know, tofu. I did not roast stuff like that before, but I know there's ways to do it. I do love tofu. If you eat meat, things, but basically, and then cook a decent amount of it, roasting it in the oven, because if you marinate stuff, you can, I would say definitely use a meat thermometer, at least until you can learn the sort of level of doneness and how it feels, the texture of it, both with a fork or with your fingers, just checking it. And similarly, potatoes. His point was, if you slice up and roast potatoes and you roast a decent amount of protein, just cut it into slices, you have stuff you can throw over rice with some vegetables and some sauce, or you can throw over a salad. You have these kinds of things. It's easy. Similarly, I've learned this because I wound up getting the sort of, I talked about it on another episode, the crock pot kind of instant pot competitor. And it's great for making rice. I mean, it's a slightly different process than the instant pot, but having had rice cookers over the years, I never really used the weird out there. I mean, weird if you're not used to it, kind of all the functions that they have. Right. I just made rice with them. So it was a very expensive thing, but it made very good rice. This thing, I use it for a lot of stuff, but it also makes rice really well. And so if you have an instant pot, or you can afford one, something like that, or a cheap, a Tiger or Zojirushi rice cooker, they are actually useful in the sense that rice and then some kind of a vegetable and then some kind of a protein, that's a meal. You know what I mean? And I'll give you one thing that was, this took me by surprise and sounded completely weird and wrong when I read it the first time. And it might've been New York Times Cooking. It might've been Serious Eats. I can't remember, but they recommended that if you were going to try marinating, instead of using oil, to have the oil base of your marinade be mayonnaise. Now, okay, because it is mostly oil. It's oil. I get it. So I have found that if you take something like chicken breasts, boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which tend to roast pretty dry, and you generously, you season it with whatever seasonings you want. I will typically do onions and some kind of dried herb thing like oregano or de Provence or something like that. So put it as much salt. If you like salt, I would definitely think adding more salt to a meat marinade helps a lot to kind of help it retain moisture, and black pepper, and mix it up and let it sit for at least an hour, but preferably 6-ish hours in the fridge, and then roast it, preheat your oven to depending on how much you want to surveil it, 400 or 450 in Fahrenheit, or what is that? Probably 175 to 205 Celsius, and then roast it and make sure with poultry you want it to be done. I mean, some thermometers say 165, but I was always taught 180 when I worked in food service. And I find that if you season chicken correctly, 180 you won't have any pink spots or mushy spots. And if you season it right, it won't be dry either. But basically I'll do this. I'll cook a couple of chicken breasts like this, And then once they're done, take them out, put them on a plate, cover them with something like a big salad bowl or something, and let them sit for like 5-ish minutes to kind of rest and complete cooking. And then put them on a cutting board that's not going to be damaged by heat, and preferably not a wood one, because like it's not really a great idea to cut meat stuff on wood if you can avoid it. Like roast meat's fine, raw meat, I mean, it's okay, but raw meat, not great.
Yeah.
Anyway, but slice it up and then serve it. We did it not too long ago to make salads, and it was phenomenal. I made the joke because I shredded some carrots. I bought like a thing of olives, like stuffed olives that I sliced up. I bought some they're not cherry tomatoes, but they're like they look like Roma tomatoes, but they're tiny, kind of oblong oval tomatoes, and sliced those up. And then had some onions and shredded, like I think I said, shredded carrots. And then we had this kind of cress vegetable rampon that you can get here. It's really good. And then some leftover lettuce, like a lettuce mix, and mix that together. And then Parmesan cheese, and put those together. And obviously, like one of the more common pre-made salad dressings you can get here is French dressing, and it's really good. So I mean, I've never been a fan before, but it's good here. Salad dressing is a pretty easy thing to make on your own. You literally just need an oil, like you can use vegetable oil, but I would recommend olive oil, and some kind of vinegar, and typically some kind of like soy saucy, very concentrated kind of umami thing, and salt, and maybe like, pepper, anything else you want, hot sauce, whatever. But it's really easy, honestly. And maybe a little bit of citrus juice if you got, like squeeze a lemon, or like get a little jar of the, little squeeze bottle of lemon juice you can buy in America. But yeah, I made the salad, and with all the stuff I just described, and it's like, when you think about what I've just described, there was a decent amount of chopping, but there wasn't a lot of like culinary technique. The only technique here was the marinating and then roasting, and that was really easy in my opinion. Yeah. And then sliced it all up and served it, and I was like, this tastes like if you made a salad out of like with the German street kebabs, like it's like a doner kebab salad. It was incredible because you had like the kind of creamy dressing and the shredded carrots and the onions and the tomatoes and the olives. I didn't realize I'd gotten pimento stuffed olives, but they had like jalapeno, like pickled jalapeno juice is what they've been done in, and so like they were actually spicy. I was really surprised.
Nice.
Continental Europe is not really a place where really spicy things are famously available. So yeah, all I'm saying is that stuff like that. And then New York Times, if you can't get pirated fucking thing online, then shoot us an email and I'll send you a PDF of it. They have a really, really simple marinara recipe, and it's actually very easy. It's genuinely not hard at all, and I found it to be one of the better marinara sauces I've ever had. Basic pasta sauces, that Marcella Hazen sauce I talked about, the one with just onions, butter, and tomatoes, phenomenal.
You mentioned the Instant Pot, and the Instant Pot has been one of the greatest. Like, I use that thing at least once a week, not just for rice, but hard-boiled eggs, but also it'll cook. Like, if you're worried about, I want to make some kind of food that maybe we'll have for a couple of days, it's going to be cheap, it's going to be easy, look for dump meals. And what it is, it's a meal that, like, here's all the ingredients, you dump them into the Instant Pot, and then you turn it on, and then 45 minutes food is ready. The Instant Pot has revolutionized cooking in a lot of ways, especially for lazy people like myself who don't want to have to sit there and slow cook and marinate and do this, that, and the other thing. The pressure cooker just infuses everything with itself, and then at the end you have a really nice chili.
Well, what's funny for me is that, like, I have obviously done everything manually, and I have been cooking, since I really have always enjoyed cooking, and since I had my first apartment with a kitchen in college, I've been trying to cook as much as I can. I really enjoy it. It's just a thing I like doing. And I would say the thing with the Instant Pot, because I'd never had one before, is there are certain things where, like, it wouldn't necessarily be appropriate if you really needed control over the heat, but for a lot of stuff you don't. And, like, for example, there's a recipe I really like that it's a Puerto Rican chicken stew called pollo en fricassee, and it's amazing. It's basically chicken thighs, you don't brown them. You just basically make a sauce of minced onion, garlic, tomato sauce, or I use passata because American style tomato sauce isn't really a thing you can find here, and salt, pepper, I want to say cumin, like ground cumin, paprika, and then you just turn it on and you cook it. Get it hot, boiling, cook it. And then you add in white wine, you cook it. And then you add in olives, capers, and sliced potatoes. And then you stew it for like an hour. Mm-hmm. And so with the Instant Pot, what I can do is there's like stage one, all this stuff in, get it boiling. And then what I typically do is I bring it up to pressure, but only because you're supposed to cook it for, like, I think once like 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. I bring it up to high pressure for like 10 minutes and then depressurize it, do the next thing. Because that's one thing with alcohol. If you cook alcohol stuff like wine and stuff in a pressure cooker, it won't actually denature the alcohol.
Right.
So you have to cook that, like have it boiling in like for about 10 minutes or so outside, like with the lid off. But then next step, potatoes, all the other vegetables I just mentioned, and then close it up, do it for 10 more minutes. And it's like you slow cooked it. It's really incredible. You know, the meat just falls off the bone. Everything is really delicious. And, you know, it's not necessarily a ton easier than doing it on the stove in the sense of like, obviously you have to prep all those ingredients I've just described. However, what I like about it is that like I can be doing other things and just do that in that phase. And then I know that like with a manual pressure cooker, you have to watch it and get it up to pressure. Then you have to find the right temperature on the stove to sustain that pressure so it's not going over. And then depressurizing. I mean, that's one thing where you have a little more leeway with a manual one because there's ways to quick depressurize you can't really do with an Instant Pot. But like, it also feels a little bit more fraught sometimes because like the Instant Pot seems to have a really good like arrestor inside the valve. So if you open the valve and like you just let it steam like fucking crazy, like I have never seen it spit. Whereas like a manual pressure cooker will spit if you hold the thing down, let alone the fact that like if you're holding it down, like the plastic becomes hot and it'll burn your finger. So I like the fact that it's kind of like you don't have to surveil it and monitor it the way that you would a manual thing. And then, yeah, it can be, if I'm not cooking another dish, if this is just the one thing I'm making, then I can literally be doing all the dishes while it's going. And then when it's done, I literally just have to clean the dinner dishes and then like the liner pot for the Instant Pot.
Yeah.
Or I should say the crock pot Instant Pot competitor. Right. It's not an Instant Pot. Yeah.
Whatever it is. Yeah. I do a lot of that cooking. They have so many, it's Instant Pot too. Like I don't know about the European version of it.
They sell the Instant Pot here too. It's just the only reason I got the crock pot was because it came with the nonstick pan inside standard as opposed to an aftermarket thing, and the version you could get if you bought the Instant Pot that was as big as the one that I got, it had to be like the fucking Wi-Fi connected one, and like I'd rather end it all than buy a Wi-Fi connected cooking appliance. Yes. So yeah, brother, I'm gonna dude, I'm not making this up. I'm 100% for real. I was buying that new LED tube yesterday in the grocery store because they sell. I knew the size, just had to find the right one, and one of them was literally a Wi-Fi connected fucking LED fluorescent tube. Like, okay, why? Why?
So I kind of get it with the light bulbs, and we've thought about it. So like we have recessed lights in our living room, like can lights, and we recently replaced all of those with these lights that if you unscrew them, you can adjust the light output, so you can make it softer or harder or harsher light or blue or whatever lights you can do that with. And the ability to do that with my phone, like, look, I'm very much anti-Internet of Things when it comes to something that's going to send information anywhere. But changing my lights, I get that. I understand that, especially with, my house is very small, and when we have all the lights on, it's too bright, but you turn most of them, like, it's just it's hard to get a good medium depending on what you're trying to do.
What I don't like about it is the fact that typically with these apps and the way that things work is it's tied to your account and it's set up. And so what it means is that like your phone is interfacing with the thing, which is interfacing with the device, or there's some possibility of that connection outside. Bluetooth, while annoying, I'm buying a circular saw, and like one of the higher end Bosch models has like a Bluetooth thing for a Bosch app. Like, so you can basically, I understand the appeal that they might sell it with in the sense that you can manually set the RPM of the saw, but like, fuck off, man. Yeah. Fuck off. But anyway, but the external connection part of the Wi-Fi enabled thing is what I'm like, oh no, it's turning into party lights until I pay a fucking Bitcoin ransom. You know what I mean?
Right. The problem comes down to, is this something that I have control over? And like, if when your company inevitably goes out of business and your app is no longer being supported, but yet these LED lights, which last 25 years, are still here in my house, what's the point? What am I doing here?
Do they really last 20? Because I had Cree light bulbs in New York that I got. I was really excited to buy LED lights because I'd heard about them forever. And I'm going to be honest with you, like they were still working, but they had dimmed significantly after 4 years, to the point where like I probably would have wound up replacing them like in the next year. Not because they like burned out the way an incandescent bulb would, but because like their output, granted, I bought them in 2014, so like they were probably earlier consumer models of it. It felt like they were getting pretty dim. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It looks like, just a quick Google says 30 to 50,000 hours. So right, that can be upwards of 20 years, depending on how often you use the LEDs.
Yeah, if you're fucking a Mennonite and you only use candles, like, and the lights are only an emergency.
It says 22 years of used at 50% operation. You know, my living room lights are on maybe half the day. Turn them off at night. Unless you want to live in some, like, I can't be in the dark. The allegory of the cave will never happen to me because lights are always pointing in different directions and there are no shadows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I too have heard "No One Knows My Plan" by They Might Be Giants. I would say that the thing about it is we've gotten really hilariously off topic, but to bring it back to the point and to answer, I have one last thing for the easy meals thing is that, I am stunned when I see these sorts of like the stupid internet things. But like if anything, it's more that I don't want to pay extra for a thing I'm not going to use, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so the extra cost wasn't worth it to me. Also, I would have had to have bought another thing from another vendor to get the sort of Instant Pot compatible nonstick pan. And I was like, well, I can just buy this one. What I am learning now is obviously every Instant Pot recipe, like you have to kind of deduce how it's going to work on the crock pot model, but it's pretty similar. The one thing I was going to say is for someone who wants to do, this is not an everyday meal, but you know, growing up, it always was a huge treat when my parents would make French toast. Seemed pretty rare, but hilariously, French toast, the word in French for French toast is literally like, the best way I can describe it is sort of like, it's kind of like spoiled bread or like bread that's gone off. I mean, like French is an interesting language that sometimes they use the same word for tons of different things that we have separate verbs for in English.
Yeah,
and it's
pomme de terre is one of my favorite.
Yeah, but they do that in German too, though.
Yeah, they're also fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, I know, right? They call raccoons washing bears and the French call them washing rats. But what's it called? French toast it literally is pain perdu, like lost bread / spoiled bread / bread that's gone off, but it's literally just soak sliced bread in beaten eggs with some cinnamon and then let them absorb a bit and then cook them on a greased surface and serve with topping of your choice. It's insanely easy to make. Now you can't, much like my daughter can't live on bread alone, you can't live on French toast alone, but like it's
depends on
good.
Depends on the bread. Maybe if you get some of that high fiber, maybe a little. I know here in America for a while when the Atkins craze was big, there was potato bread, which I never
like potato
tried.
Flour bread. Yeah. I mean, there's rice flour bread too. There's stuff like that. I mean, I would just say, French toast is an easy one. A lot of stuff when you get down to it, like it's not that challenging to learn, but I would say the biggest thing is like try new stuff and set aside time if it's something really kind of adventurous or new. There's definitely some staples out there for easy stuff, even if you don't have an appliance and you're just cooking like on the stovetop. And I'd also say too, for me, like, you know, I've been trying to flex the culinary muscles. I never went to like any kind of formal education for it, but I like cooking a lot and I've been doing it for years, and I still learn new stuff all the time. So
absolutely, cooking and this is a great, current day time is a great time to learn cooking because there are so many recipes out there, and I know everybody loves to talk shit on AI, but with ChatGPT, you can plug in like, here's the ingredients I have, what can I make with them, and it'll give you an output. No, don't do that.
Don't do that. There was the famous example of it telling people to put glue on pizza, but no, it's you don't want to do that. But
well, don't tell it you have glue.
No, but just I would say my ChatGPT story is too long and convoluted, but out of curiosity, I tried it out one time, and what I discovered was it really didn't want to answer my question about like, can I please get a list of like biographies of this famous the former president, basically the first president of the Third French Republic, and finally it relented and gave me a list of biographies, and every single one of them, the authors were real people, most of them who had been dead for at least 70 years, and all of the titles were fake. It just made up fake titles. And I think the funniest one was that it picked a guy who had been the professor emeritus of American history at like UC Irvine, but had like retired in 1975, and claimed that he wrote a book called Adolphe Thiers, The Napoleon of the French. Which is
imagine the Napoleon of the French. Imagine if Napoleon was a Frenchman.
What if Napoleon was a French guy?
Well, he wasn't French. He was Corsican. So
what language do they speak in Corsica? What country is Corsica part of?
Oh yeah, what language do they speak in Switzerland?
They speak French, German, Italian, Romansh, and a lot of Croatian. But like, it's one of those things where I don't really trust it. That's my story. Yeah. But I will say this: like, there's a lot of there's so many recipe things out there, and like Serious Eats, The Kitchen, Kitchen, what's it called? Smitten Kitchen, stuff like that. Like for now, at least it's not paywalled. And there's a lot of really good stuff that I found there. So
yeah, and I know everybody's going to complain about the SEO parts of recipe sites. There's usually a jump to recipe button that lets you get.
I want to learn about how this recipe ties in with the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001.
It all traces itself back to 9/11. Okay, so Nate, now that you've moved into your new place, you're in a permanent residence. We got a question from Nike Forest, 1981. Do you guys ever want to, or do you have a workshop to do woodworking or metalworking, anything like that?
Oh, brother.
Yeah, now that you, I mean, I've got my setup, but tell me about your plans, because at some point in time, you're going to need some kind of workshop.
Yeah, so right now when I do stuff like that, we have a balcony, and so it's small, but like, for example, I've put together a kitchen, like kind of like a console extension thing, because there's a big open space where the previous tenants had a freezer, like a standalone freezer, because the freezer in the fridge is really, really small and like tiny, like can fit like 2 bottles of water small. So that space though, where that thing is set, was like kind of empty. And so what I did was I found from a hardware store, I bought some lumber, but to get the second tier of it, I need to cut it, because I could install it with what I've got, but then we'd be hitting our heads on it all the time. And you don't want that.
No.
So at present, my plan is that I'm probably going to have to run the power cable, or I might get the battery circular saw, but like set up some kind of like ad hoc thing on the balcony to make that cut, and also to do like the staining and sanding and stuff. But it's not going to be suitable for the kind of stuff I need to do. And so my hope is I was unsuccessful in getting a commercial lease anywhere because I didn't have a business registered. So I had to go through the process of doing that. And I'm nearly done. And I'm hoping that I can find something. So obviously being in the French speaking part, when you go and you look on office space things, like I don't really want an office in the sense of like in an office building. What I want is the word in French is like atelier, which is like a workshop or a studio, kind of a studio space. And the reason is I need to be able to set up equipment, and I need to be able to set up a soundproof enclosure to record in and to mix and stuff in. But I really also want a space, if nothing else, for like a work table, so I can get, there's a bunch of things I want to build. Like I've been kind of like brain exploding with ideas of stuff that I want to do. I don't know how much of it is feasible, but I want to, after having built that table in London for the studio, I want to build like a nice desk for myself, probably out of plywood, but I'm actually thinking about going a little insane and doing like 2K primer on it, and actually doing, if not automotive paint, then like either oil or like really gloss, like some kind of like heavy duty acrylic paint. I mean, I'd honestly, if I could set up the ventilation and it's not going to get me in trouble with a place, I would absolutely love to get a compressor, spray gun, atomizer, and actually like correctly spray paint to do like some furniture in like automotive colors, and then do the whole process of like sanding and epoxy coating and or urethane
putting some
coating.
Cool racing stripes on it so the desk goes faster.
Well, no, dude. Do you want the truth? When I was a kid living in Germany in the early 90s, there was still a lot of leftover stuff that had been built brand new in the 70s, and it hadn't been remodeled yet. Because you think about the kind of like 15 to 20-ish year cycle on these things, right? And one of the things that I really, really loved, to me, was like felt iconic at the time, was in the 70s in like German speaking countries, they fucking loved orange. They loved orange paint, bright orange paint, and bright orange furniture. And I was like, you know what? I want to build a desk, but I want to automotive glossy paint it and seal it to be like this insanely bright orange. And maybe I'll hate it and I'll have to cover it up. But it's like, part of me is just like, nah, I kind of want to do that.
I gotta send you the St. Louis city, the trash trucks and the forestry trucks, and like all of the city, like, municipal trucks. They're all a very specific orange. And it's not like, oh, this is orange that makes it stand out. This is, reflective. It's just a really weird orange. And I'll have to send that to you. Maybe we're pulling some of our German roots there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to go too crazy with it. Like, I mean, if I'm going to need to buy a wood router, but I'm not going to go like super insane. Like, I'd probably use a router to cut like mortises, do mortise and tenon stuff with or maybe I might even literally just use it, just drill dowel holes, or cut dowel holes and stuff to join things that way. Like, I'm not really, my dad was really into that stuff, the like really high end cabinetry and like doing dovetails and all sorts of like crazy joints and shit. And like, it's beautiful. But to me, some of the wood furniture that I like, done that way, and some stuff I really like the kind of like painted finish, but it has to be done to my liking, I suppose. And so I expect that, long term, I'm going to get it set up, try to set up a workshop. And then similarly, they said metalworking. I don't know a ton about it, but I do know that for some things, it's actually kind of shocking how much weight you can save with doing things with like aluminum profile and aluminum studs and things like that, or steel studs for building, like depending on what the project. And there are some things where it might make sense to learn a little bit about it. I mean, in my heart, there's a part of me that would really love to fucking go hog wild and learn how to like fabricate things out of sheet metal. But I know that like, I think that requires some pretty complex machines. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like if I have a metal shop site, it's going to be that I'm going to have some blades to cut metal, some drill bits to cut metal, to route metal, and then also snips for like the tin snips for cutting profile and stuff like that.
You're not going to get a forge going, start doing your own smithy.
No, but I mean, like sometimes when I see the things that they can do, but when like the machines that you then like program to do like the bending and stuff to fabricate things out of sheet metal, I'm like, man, that's cool as fuck. Mm-hmm. Like it's really, really sick what you can make with these things. Like, but I just, I don't know, man, like to be honest with you, I want to learn how to do this and practice more in a way that's going to be useful for me for what I do. So it's mostly going to be office furniture, but like, I also don't want to do it and be like, oh, it's shoddy as fuck, but like, at least I tried. Like I want to actually learn how to do the stuff correctly. You know what I mean? Like, and so, but I also don't want to spend a ton of money on stuff. And, or like for the example of paint gun things, like the ventilation required on some of these things can be so significant that like, it would basically, you'd need like an industrial bay with like venting, like legally and health reasons and stuff. And so I don't want to go all out crazy with it, but we'll see what happens. I definitely am excited though at the prospect of being able to have some space to really get some stuff done, if not just to build things for like little things for the studio and also for our house or our apartment.
Yeah, I have a workbench in the basement that is basically a slab door that's up on two sawhorses, which, that's the most like dad ass workbench that you can ever create.
I would say shout out to Modern Makeovers on YouTube, who is a guy who basically does, he's a guy in Toronto who does what I can describe as ASMR woodworking videos, where he finds some of the most fucked up old furniture and does a phenomenal job. And the videos are just really interestingly shot, but he doesn't talk. It's just subtitles. And then it's just like, it's just massive ASMR woodworking / refinishing, stripping, sanding, painting, routing, fucking. He loves being like, oh yeah, well I need to do tabletop for this thing. So here's this fucked up old door and I'm just going to cut it with my track saw or my table saw or circular saw. Like you building a workbench out of an old door, that is 100% like Modern Makeovers guy.
Well, I put a door on two sawhorses. It sounds to me like he's doing a little bit more than I am.
Yeah. But the idea, like one of the things that you'll find is so often is like, oh, I need to replace a drawer in this fucked up unit. And he's like, but I have like an infinity supply of scrapped old drawer pieces. So I just take them and just cut them to size and make a new drawer from them and stuff like that. Like, oh, I saved this tabletop from this thing I found by the side of the road. Like I've been really enjoying it. But yeah, I need like a work table / sawhorses for this upcoming thing. Like I don't really have anything put together and I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to basically try to see, because I'm getting a circular saw with a guide rail. I'm going to see if I can make it work in a way that's safe, where I can clamp it either to something that I've already got built, or, just like assemble it in a way where I'm clamping it to another piece of wood that's been elevated, but like safely. I'm not stupid and it's just one cut, but I like long term, I do want to get an actual workbench. I just
my workbench and also I don't really do woodworking or metalworking. I have no desire to do those things outside of like my necessities. I had to put some beadboard up in the kitchen. I have a jigsaw. I have a circular saw. That's really all that I need. But I do a lot of, I take old signs, I get them from secondhand store and I sand them down and I put new stuff on them. It's either that or I do painting. I have a Cricut. So I'm the guy in the house with the Cricut doing stenciling and various projects there. But I do in the garage, I have a table set up because when I need to use my orbital sander, I don't want to do that inside because then there's just sawdust everywhere. So I go to the garage, I open up the garage door, I do whatever orbital sanding I need, and then I take it all back inside to do all the painting and touch-ups and all of that.
I have an orbital sander too, and it's got a vacuum hose accessory, but it's also got like a bag. I wouldn't use it indoors, but
no, it's great to have those, but yeah, you don't want to use that like in your own house. There's always going to be fly-offs.
I mean, you can, but you better be ready to deep clean a bunch over and over again to get rid of it all and be finding it for a while.
Yeah, the direction that I'm going with a lot of what I do is a lot of handmade things. We're trying to do more in-person events because my wife does crochet and I do like I said, the signs. I get old cigar boxes. I turn them into dice rollers. I have one. I found a Napoleon jewelry box for men. Like it's probably about 12 inches long. It had all like spots for rings and bracelets and stuff, and it was for men. And it had like, Napoleon. It's just got this like Napoleon coin on the outside of it. So I stripped everything off in the middle of that, and I put like decoupaged a French flag onto the bottom of it, and then I put like Napoleon on the horse, the Carpathian Mountains.
It might be, yeah. I know what you mean, though. Yeah,
the famous painting Napoleon on the horse. The horse is rearing up, and I put that. And I put like a Napoleon quote in there about like always plan, but when the time for action comes, do the action, something along those lines.
Letter to Josephine: I'll be home in 4 days. Don't wash.
Don't wash. I like it stinky, baby. That's my workspace. I don't do all of the manly dad shit. This is what I do now, and I'm much more happier with it.
I mean, I have a couple of projects where I need to build probably some more shelving things, and my dad made some shelves with breadboard ends, and they look really nice, and so I'm going to see if I can manage that, but it's definitely like a learn as you go. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make relatively simple stuff, like obviously here in Europe, and I don't know if it's like this in America too, but like MDF board is really standard for kitchens, like the kind of like IKEA kitchen cabinet fitting and that sort of style of the treated, sealed up, edged and trimmed MDF board is everywhere here. And so there are some things where it makes sense where I would want to make it, for example, like a desk. I think I'd probably make it out of plywood, but for like I'm like a hanging cabinet, just for like gym, like lightweight gym equipment stuff, but just to get it off the floor. For Cynthia, I'll probably use MDF to build that. And there's a certain degree of like, do you buy kits or do you want to like do it yourself with doing things like installing the track rails for it and like that kind of architecture? How do you want to join it? Do you want to do dowels? Do you want to do nails? Do you want to do like, there's a lot of stuff you can do. I used a pocket jig cutter to make the table, and it's not like the world's strongest joints, but it worked. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of stuff that I'm interested in, like, but the purpose is like, it's not necessarily to be like a fine woodworking showpiece so much as like, it's a kind of a functional thing where it's going to be kind of, my goal has always been, if I make something, I want it to fit the space that it's being made for, but not be so idiosyncratic that it can never be used anywhere else. And then just, make it look nice. So we'll see. I will say it's very funny when you get really deep in the weeds on some of the tools you can buy. Like there's just so much insane stuff. I mean, I know like there's famously Makita has like the 18 volt battery powered coffee maker, but but like there's a thing that Festool makes that I understand, and it's actually very useful for people who do this, but it basically looks like you combined a router with like the sort of floor buffers we used in the army, and it's a hand tool, but what it does is if you feed a strip of MDF edging into it and it applies it to the edge and like heats and presses it, and like the result, if it's done correctly, is insanely good. Like there's you can basically go in and do a little bit of edge trimming and like using a plane to clean up, and it winds up looking so seamless. It looks like it's been like shop painted, like atomizer compressor paint gun painted. Like it's unbelievable seeing it. Now I don't do this. I don't work with MDF like that, and I don't need a 1600 franc tool to do this, but sometimes you look into, like, it opens up your brain of like, man, that would be so fucking cool.
Right.
I could do so many insane things with that. You know what I mean?
I had that same, like, talking about Cricut just, they have this like $1,000 machine that like you can mount on a wall, and it's got all this stuff, and like I have no use for it, but like it's the same thing as like, wow, I can one day I can really fucking up my game with this if I want to.
I will say this, I made this joke on Blue Sky, and I'll leave you with this. It's very funny. Is also part of the experience here is if I'm going to buy the thing that I want specifically, like I have to oftentimes learn the French word for it or the German word if it's a German language vendor. And one thing I find very funny is, as I said before, that like, with verbs, you'll find this often that English has like 8 different verbs for something, and French just uses the same verb for a different context with every single one. But the opposite is true for tools. Like there's like, as like I count so far 3 different words for router, like depending on the kind of size and what it does, like a chamfering router versus an edging router versus like, like some of the larger routers you can get. Like there's fraiseuse, défonceuse. There's another word, I keep forgetting it, like, but it's just, it's wild. I have to learn this whole new vocabulary, and there aren't a lot of like loan words. There aren't like a ton of English words or like words that would, like, they've go figure, you know, they got this woodworking culture they've got all their own words for shit, but I have to learn so many new words that I've never encountered before because like, yeah, you know, it's just
stuff that's not going to be on Duolingo.
No, it's like high school French doesn't teach you the difference between écrou and rondelle, and I'm trying to think of like écrou is a nut, rondelle is a washer, V is a bolt or a screw, V à tête fraisée is a countersunk screw, V à tête bombée or vis à tête bombée is a fucking like a round-headed screw or bolt. Like all these things, it's just like, man, my vocabulary list is insane. And then randomly it'll be like, I didn't know the word for blueberries, or I didn't know the word for slug. Like I try to write these words down, you know, as I go.
What is the French word? What is hater worm in French?
Oh, it'd be like vernis de la haine or something like that. Yeah, vernis hater. They love like slang French. They love using English expressions. So like, yeah, but vernis is a worm. So yeah, vernis hater. Slug is limace, which I'd never experienced.
Yeah, don't ever encounter that. Well, Nate, I think that's a podcast. Everybody, thank you for listening. We've got a lot of really good plans coming up for this next year. Hopefully you've heard some of our musical episodes that we've done with Jack, hoping to do more of those, not necessarily, you know, kid and family oriented, but just kind of our own musical stuff. Cause I know, Nate and Jack, both big music heads. So you guys are going to drag me into the 21st century of listening. I'm going to stop listening to, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness for once. And
why would you stop?
I don't know. Because just like I need to log off of Twitter, I'm tired of being sad.
I mean, all I can say is that in what's it called? The song Jelly Belly, there's the line, living makes me sick, so sick I wish I'd die. And you can imagine me at 11 hearing that and be like, that's so fucking cool. And especially because like, so sick I wish I would die. And then, just badass guitar stuff, man. Jesus Christ. Oh, we'd do a whole episode just talking about Melancholy.
Yeah. And also a thing that you and I have talked about, we've never gotten around to it, but my wife was once again surprised that I've never seen the Kevin Costner Robin Hood. And so that movie,
that's right.
Yes, we need to watch it and we need to talk about it because we've been introducing our daughter. We had her she watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which we picked up. I never knew that there was a French joke in there, the fetchy la chevette, fetch the cow. Yeah, never caught that one. But my wife has been taking French, so she picked that one up. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff lined up. So if you want to be in the Discord, as I've mentioned, patreon.com/hellofaWayToDie. Any amount of money that you sign up for, even if you're giving us $1 a month, you can get into the Discord that we share with Lions Led by Donkeys. So it's very big, it's active. There's a lot of people in there. Pretty cool group of people in there. A lot of fun. And we have of course, we're going to be doing 3 bonus episodes every month going forward. Date and I have been talking about some other plans that we have for that. So lots of good stuff. And Deadliest Warrior Season 2 coming this year as well. And I will be rotating the guests that I have on for that, forcing people to watch Deadliest Warrior as I force myself to watch all of them. Really relive my late 20s all over again. Nate, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Have a good one.